Hello and welcome to A Fountain of Useless Information, a micro podcast hosted by Ann O'Connor. Each 15-minute episode will feature a person, much like yourself, who knows something unusual, interesting, and maybe even zany that is near and dear to their heart. Welcome, Tanya Sheppard, to A Fountain of Useless Information.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, good. Tanya's going to talk today about growing up speaking more than one language. In fact, growing up speaking 3 languages and how being multilingual affects people later in life, brain development, cultural development, all kinds of things. Tanya, tell us a little bit about how you came to speak so many languages as a child.
Well, my dad was Russian and my mom was German. My mom was really quite it was easy for her to learn new languages. She knew some British English before we came over to this country from Germany after the war. And she learned Russian while we were learning Russian. And Dad was the despot. He was the one who made us do Russian homework every night. And we had no choice. We just had to do that. And he figured we were smart enough to figure English out at school. I didn't speak English until first grade.
Yanni! Hello! Come here! Hey! Come here!
Did you have any schooling in your original German or Russian languages when you were still in Europe?
I was 2.5 when we came over, no.
No. Okay. I didn't know.
I was little.
You were little. Yeah. So it's always kind of fascinated me. As Americans, we simply speak English as the rest of the world should. But you came over and really had a trial by fire, I would think.
I had no idea. I just figured there were other people on the block in Bayonne, New Jersey, that also had a second language, possibly a third, and they did. I mean, there were Ukrainians, there were Poles, there were Italians, there were Puerto Ricans, there was every. So to me, that was perfectly normal that you spoke a different language at home. My problem was that I didn't know English at all, so hardly at all, street English. So by the time I got to school, there wasn't any help, really. My first grade teacher just took me aside 20 minutes every day and explained things at the end of the day. And that was wonderful.
How long did it take for you to become comfortable with English in the school setting?
God, I don't know. I always had issues. I mean, there's always something. Even in 8th grade, there were things I wouldn't understand that had to be explained to me. So,
okay. Because, I mean, not only did you have to learn it orally, you had 2 different alphabets you were dealing with.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, the German alphabet, because my mother taught us the German alphabet, was similar. The Russian alphabet was a little different, and there were some English letters in it, but like the H was an N in Russian, and you get mixed up, and then because I had to learn to write in Russian and then write in English script,
right,
and not just printing, so it was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, yeah. Because when I think of the German alphabet, it just looks like a more ornate alphabet than we tend to use here. Yeah, but it's basically the same letters.
Basically the same letters, the Latin letters, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, I mean, really, enough is enough. So you came here with this whole list of things that most of them truly look like benefits.
I think they are. When I came up to New England, there were more problems and I was in my 20s, and I figured, I understood America. But New England, immediately there were idioms and things that I'd never heard of before. And I had a husband, a Yankee, who decided that I would understand all these idioms. I had no clue.
But no, I thought that Joe grew up in New Jersey.
No, Joe grew up in New England.
Okay, in Southbridge. His father was from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember once visiting a friend in California. I was cycling at the time, and I went on a bike ride, and I came back to her house, and she said, how was it? I said, it was pretty good, spitting a little. And she just died laughing because she'd never heard anybody describe rain as spitting.
Oh, see, now I didn't know what you were talking about either.
Oh, all right.
I'm still having it.
I won't take it personally.
Excuse me.
Okay, so on your list, you have things like critical thinking, problem solving, mental flexibility.
Have to.
Did-
Always. Well, it came in very handy when I started teaching, and also when I started leading tours to Europe and to Russia, because particularly during Soviet Union times, there weren't things available. I had to solve a problem of a toilet seat or things that weren't available there.
What years did you lead those tours to Russia or USSR at that point?
Yes, USSR.
What years was that?
Oh, I started in '78.
Okay,
And,
so it was starting to open up at that point.
Not really. No. We had somebody following us. I had to be very careful if I went to see somebody privately, because I stood out like a sore thumb in the way I was dressed, my shoes, the whole thing.
Yeah, because at that point you were an American.
I was an American. That's
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Yep.
So, it shapes your mind and outlook on life.
Yeah, it's a little different than most people because I can grab things from culturally. Like, I remember the first time I saw Swan Lake on television. My father made sure that we saw that. My father made sure that we saw this guy, Igor Moiseyev, who had a Russian troupe that did different folk dances and things like that. Ed Sullivan brought them in, and that was in '59 or something like that.
So before the Beatles.
Oh God, yes, before the Beatles and that. But for me, it was something that my father wanted us to know or to see. He definitely wanted us to play. I had to play the piano. Wanted us to see. He definitely wanted us to play. I had to play the piano. There's no question whether I would or not. I just had to. There was music in his family, music in my mother's family, so it just happened. I'm glad it did, but I wasn't quite. My sister and brother tried it too, but they didn't do so well, so they stopped.
Oh, well.
But, I was the oldest. I was pushed, so it's fine.
But that's stuck with you. I mean, when I see you at the piano concerts at the Fredericks in Ashburnham, you're always at the ones with the Russian programming.
Well, I have to.
Yeah, you kind of have to. You do, yes. So I made a
And
horrible...
it's also a German program.
Do you do Germans?
And
Okay.
and all that stuff too. So.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right. I was misinformed.
No, and I like American jazz and all that stuff.
Well, of course you do. Of course you do.
But I didn't know a lot of these old-fashioned songs that you sing during holidays and stuff like that. I learned them when I met Joe.
And Joe is your husband.
Joe is my husband, yeah.
And
And he also speaks Russian, so that was one of the connections. So my father okayed him.
oh
Uh-huh.
boy, oh boy. Can I tell you my Russian story?
Yeah.
My father went in the service after he graduated from college, and it must have been at the height of the Cold War. And he was part of some kind of intelligence operation.
Ooh.
And they wanted to turn him into a Russian-speaking spy and drop him behind the lines.
Holy moly.
He refused. He had a big Irish face. He wasn't passing for anybody Russian.
Irish pass for Russians all the time. They're
Oh, really?
very close psychologically and that kind of thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I always think of Russians as being a little more Slavic in their appearance.
Mm.
Okay.
The guy who got me into the touring business was an Irishman who loved vodka and loved the Russian language, loved the... he was Catholic, but he loved the Russian Orthodox religion too. So, I mean, the whole thing
Yeah, it just gelled.
Gelled
The
for
two
him.
religions really are quite similar. I
course
mean,
they
it's
are.
very ritualistic
Yeah.
and fancy stuff. And
Sure.
I was
One's a-
down, I was in New Orleans and I saw what I thought were icons, like from the Greek or the Russian Orthodox, but it just predated before the schism. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. it's all got
You
the
know
same
that.
roots.
A lot of people don't.
I had to ask.
Okay.
I didn't know why I was looking at icons in a church called St. Patrick's. But I found out.
Good.
Yes. Okay. Now, all of this learning that you've done, you still use all three languages to some degree.
German, not so much anymore. I did in the 80s a lot because I finally found all my relatives. That was the important thing for me because we were in America without anybody. No grandparents, no cousins, no nothing. So in the 80s, I went back to where my mother lived in Stuttgart and Munich and so on. And I had the language, so I met my family there. And again, I met them a few times. And the same thing in Russia. In 78, I met some people in St. Petersburg, Russia. One of the ladies that I wanted to meet, one of my relatives, went to all the hotels in St. Petersburg to try to find out which one I was going to be in, because in those days, nobody knew. We didn't know which hotel we would be stuck in when we got there, and that was done on purpose. So that but she had no fear. She went to each one. She found out where I was going to be, and she met me.
Yeah, because it was a time when meeting
Yeah,
with
we're
an
supposed to
American
do
could be a
that.
problem.
No, it wasn't supposed to. And my father, actually, years before that, never wanted me to go there. I wasn't afraid because I had American citizenship and stuff, but he was worried about them, his family there,
Yeah,
because something could happen to them.
absolutely.
But then by 78, I think it got a little bit easier. So
Well,
it
that's
was great.
good.
It was great to meet them that
And you
day.
still are in contact with some of those relatives?
Yes, particularly the ones in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm not too happy with my relatives in Russia because they seem to be taken in by the propaganda for some strange reason. So, but in Ukraine, they're having a tough time.
Yes, they are.
They went to their home and they got the family Bible out, and they got the family icon out of their apartment. So that was good.
And they've managed to keep it with them.
Yes.
Good.
They're living in a basement apartment in the middle of the country. Yippee yay.
It's better than being on the wrong side of the turf.
Exactly.
So you have also researched this a bit and found out that there's one huge benefit for people who are multilingual as they age.
Mm-hmm.
And that is?
Well, supposedly I'm going to be delayed with getting Alzheimer's and or dementia of any kind by almost 5 years.
That's amazing.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought so. So now I know why my mother was fine until she died at 96. She never got really dementia at all. So
Not everybody does.
yeah, that's true.
You know,
But there's that fear.
there's always that fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when your daughter tells you you're forgetting everything, I'm going, But she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Well, good. Just ignore her anyway.
No, I love her.
Well, she probably ignored you for years, too.
As a teenager, yes.
Yes, I'm sure she did. Well, Tanya, thank you so much for
Well, it's
coming
been
and
a
being on the
pleasure.
show.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed our
Ann.
talk. You're
Take
welcome.
care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye. A Fountain of Useless Information is hosted, produced, and edited by Ann O'Connor. Do you have an idea for the podcast? You can reach Ann through her website, annoc.com, ANNEOC.com, on Facebook at Our History AOC, or by calling or texting 978-958-0054. All music on the podcast is in the public domain or is written and performed by the host and guests of the podcast. A Fountain of Useless Information was recorded at the Fitchburg Access Television Studios in Fitchburg. They are on the web at fatv.org.